I get so stuck and hard on myself when it's something that I should be good at. And then I decided, okay, a new way I could look at this is instead of saying, writing it off as like, maybe I'm just not that good at marketing, I could be like, oh, this old way of me doing marketing with the existing tools I have isn't getting me the results I want. Maybe it's time for me to learn a new type of marketing and get resourceful and find people who can help me and educate myself and blah, 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 blah. And that's the beauty of working on different projects is you can apply learning how to learn in an area that you're already an expert at.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 255 of the Real Estate Rundown. In this episode, we're going to be speaking with Jen Katsev, and we are going to be talking about how to identify the resources you may need to get started in syndication. You know, syndication is that big word that everybody talks about, but how do you have success in there? How do you bring a performance mindset? We're going to be discussing that with Jen as she shows us how she achieved that success and how she's already taken that all the way around the world to Bulgaria. It's a long story, but we're going to get into that right here. In this episode, we're going to discuss investing in syndications. We're going to discuss community building and high performance coaching. So if you're wanting to hear what secrets of high performance that Jen's got that you're not doing, you're going to want to tune into this episode of the Real Estate Rundown because we are going to create big results for you effortlessly through her coaching. And we're going to show you how we get that and how we do that on the next Real Estate Rundown. So join us on the Real Estate Rundown.
Welcome to the RobNet Real Estate Rundown podcast, where Shannon RobNet has handpicked industry experts to discuss all aspects of investing in the real estate world and seeks to help all real estate investors improve their education and their proven strategies to grow their real estate journeys. Now, here's your host.
Hey, today on the Real Estate Rundown, guys, we have the honor of having my guest, Jen Katsev. Jen, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me, Shannon.
You know, Jen, it's funny how we got connected. We got connected through the World Wide Web during COVID, right? And I have just been absolutely drawn to all the stuff that you're doing. And I learned something new about you today as I was preparing for the show, and that I didn't realize that you're also in high performance coaching. And so I even have something that I'm going to learn on the show, which I'm super excited about because I'm not just talking with you about what you do that helps other people. I'm excited to learn how you can help me. So with that, I want to tell everybody a little bit about who you are besides Wonder Woman, because you're a best-selling author, right? You're a serial entrepreneur. You're a commercial real estate investor. You run the 506 Club for investors, which is a networking group. I mean, you have so much, and then you run a honey company in Bulgaria. I mean, you guys, you are like polarized on both sides of the continent. I mean, I'm so amazed and I'm so impressed with what you do. And then I learned about the performance coaching. So why don't you tell us a little bit more? Walk us through this a little bit more about what you do and how kind of all of that excitement came about in your life that brought you to where we are today.
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question. I'll start by answering how I got started in, I think my true calling is being a community builder, and I'll share a little about how I got there. But first of all, I know I have a really hard time calling myself something in a short intro too, right? But what I really discovered is that really, I've generated everything myself a lot. And when you can build a community of support, it makes things easier and effortless. So you didn't have to fast forward to the end to learn that part. But what happened was when I graduated from college, I got a bachelor's in fine art. I wanted to be a painter and I didn't have a whole lot of career prospects. So I ended up doing multi-level sales for 2 solid years. And I built a team of 15 full-time employees. I was doing road shows for, if you see the people selling car wax in Costco, that was me. And what I got out of that was learning to hire, learning to train and duplicate myself, really learning solid systems and having an entire team of everyone older than me because I was, 21 years old. And then that's when I got introduced to entrepreneur mindset and Rich Dad Poor Dad. So those were some of the top benefits of that experience. And coming out of multi-level sales, I eventually burnt out. I met an art dealer who was starting a online auctioning business for paintings roughly around the $50,000 range. And with my fine art background and sales background,
the cheap paintings, the ones everybody could afford, 50 grand, the
yeah,
small.
you have like the famous artists, like, Cezanne, and then you have like the circle of his students. And so those are the ones that you usually price around there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to go to Christie's and Sotheby's even. That was really cool. Very quickly, I didn't know this person very well, and so the relationship didn't last long. But because I'd learned about auctions and buying paintings, I got this ad on my Instagram that said, learn to flip homes with other people's money. And I was like, okay, great, sign me up, right? Because I had Rich Dad Poor Dad and Robert Kiyosaki's face was on it. Later, I learned it was his licensing. It wasn't actually his course.
Right.
So that year, I invested $60,000 on credit cards that I didn't have before the 3-day weekend course at 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
So that year, basically, I had 1 year before my 0% APR lines of credit turned into 24% APR. And I did not do my first flip. And I called my mom and I told her I need to come home for a little bit and I have this mess to clean up. So it was at that time that I actually got a job at a turnkey rental providers. And a year into working at this company, my boss learned about syndications. I was in the right place at the right time. It made sense, $50,000 to put into a down payment of a rental home. You could be putting $50,000 into a share of institutional grade property and do one transaction for $1 million instead of 10 100K transactions, right? So it was a no-brainer. And while working for him, I saw him do retail, office, apartments, industrial, raw land entitlement in California, as well as several other states in the nation. But I was also his, I didn't really have a solid title, as office manager, executive assistant, that type of role. And I knew that fundraising was where it was at. I saw our director of investor relations making a much bigger check than me. And I knew that I could talk to people and I just needed to learn the actual product, right? So I asked my boss if he would train me and he said, no, you're too new. And I thought, how could I get him to teach me everything so I could advance in the company quickly, right? So the first thing I did was I'm the only Chinese person at the company. So by the way, this was back in the Bay Area. This is where I'm initially from, in California. There is a big Chinese population. They love real estate and they tend to buy it all cash, right? So I decided to take my real estate license course fully in Chinese, learn all of the terminology. And then I got on the radio, I got on the newspaper for the Chinese community, and I started sharing about my company. And then I got all these leads.
You were born in the US.
Yes.
You don't have a Chinese accent. Did you learn Chinese at this point or did you already know Chinese?
Well, I knew Chinese, but my vocabulary was limited to what's for dinner and did you do your homework?
Right.
Because that's what I talked about growing up, right?
I guess what I'm highlighting is if there's a harder way to do it, you've already found it, right? Because you didn't just learn how to do this in English, okay? Real estate transaction is hard enough, but you did it in Chinese, which is a language you were familiar with, but not to the level you were. Then you took that to the public sector and said, hi, I'm on the radio where I can't redact what I'm getting ready to say. I hope I said it correctly.
They were gracious. They did quite a bit of editing and they coached me through my sentences.
Wow. Yeah. Yes. Like I said, superhero. Go ahead. Sorry.
Now I'm on Bulgarian radio in Bulgarian. So,
Oh my goodness. I have trouble being on the podcast and speaking in English. Anyway.
So yeah, coming back, I had leads and I basically told my boss, if you don't teach me syndications now, we're going to lose these leads. And so that's how I got into the capital raising part of our company. Now, since our company was mostly transitioning from turnkey rentals into syndications, we were going to all of the RIAs, the trade shows, the events where rental home investors were hanging out. And maybe we would capture 5 to 10% of those people, because syndications, first of all, you have to educate them about the security. And then you also have to educate them about commercial real estate, which is very different from residential.
Correct. Yeah.
So at the time, there weren't any meetups focused on talking about this. And I thought, why don't I create the first one, or the first popular one?
Sure. Why not? That's easy, right? You just
Yeah.
learned Chinese. You just took your real estate test in Chinese. Creating a RIA has got to be a piece of cake at this point.
Piece of cake, right? Not really, because I had a lot of self-doubt. You know, when I threw this idea at my boss and he said, "Oh, that's a great idea, Jen. Why don't you do it?" And I was like, "Me?" I'm
Right.
4 years old at this point. I don't have much of a track record that I felt confident in. I didn't have the money. And so, you know, I had to get resourceful. I asked my company, "Would you sponsor this event?" And they said, obviously, yes. So I found a venue. And then I created a meetup page. And then I had to find experts basically to speak. One of the greatest sources of experts that I found was actually from other events that I attended. So I started asking speakers, and we had the chief economist of Fannie Mae come out and speak twice, give an economic forecast to an audience of 400 people in person. You know, the club, starting from day one, was just minimum 100 in-person attendees. And this became a significant lead source, educating people about syndications and ultimately building trust and credibility with our company. So
I'm taking notes over here. I'm taking
Yeah.
notes. Honestly, yeah. This is some great information I'm hearing.
with people in marketing, especially, they're always trying to chase other people. And the strategy that I think works best, and I'll talk about the mindset behind this too, is why not create something that's so great that people are naturally drawn towards you? You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to be the expert, but you do have to believe that people want what you have and that you're worthy, which is something that I had to get over. Was, am I really good enough to attract people?
You know, and out of that, you've created the 506 Club, which has, I mean, you've gone from where you were working for your boss. You've gotten into the bee business, which is another awesome story. But now you've transitioned out of being an employee.
Yep.
And typical Jen style, you're not just in one new business, you're in 3 or 4. You're 4 new businesses, because you've got the 506 Club, you've got where your partnership with Ganga, you've got the bee business, and now you're learning exporting. I mean, come on. I mean, seriously, look at all that you're doing. But anybody that knows you is absolutely not surprised by any of this at all.
Well, the way that I make it sustainable, again, is I don't try to do everything by myself. Everything that I am interested in, I either find a community to be a part of, or I make one if it doesn't exist, right? So after moving to Plovdiv, Bulgaria, I basically plugged into the expat community here. And now I run an expats Facebook group of 5,000 members. I run a girls group locally. I have literally right after our interview an entrepreneurs meetup for the expat entrepreneurs in my local city. And then with performance coaching, I created my own community. 506 Club was a way for me to stay involved while being abroad with what's going on in US real estate. And the thing with most of the groups that I've participated in is the organizer is a syndicator themselves. So a lot of their content is mostly self-promotion. And I wanted to create something that's a little more democratized because I'm purely a passive investor. I'm not promoting any particular deal that I sponsor. So, yeah.
Well, and we've done the same with our RIA. You know, we created a RIA. I had the same thought process as you. If it's not there, let's just build our own. And the reality is, at the end of the day, I think it was the 7th meeting before I spoke about what I did. Right? Everybody else, I was getting everybody else to talk about how they were involved in real estate and how fix and flips happen and how this happened. how investing with your IRA happened. I mean, I let everybody else speak because I didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be about real estate community, because I knew that that would be a sustainable room. If I'm talking about syndication, that's not necessarily sustainable. At some point, they've heard what I have to say and the room dies, right? And so I completely hear you on that. I mean, I completely agree. So you're not using any of the traditional models. I mean, everything you're doing is, I'm not going to call it the Gen method, but it's through attraction marketing. I mean, I don't know what else to call it, but you're creating something that people want to be involved with. And when we copyright that, Jen, we'll just put both of our names on that, right? But you're really doing it by creating a place of resource. And that is not something you see a lot of, because, you know, it's, who cares what I do? What is it you want to learn? What is it I can help you learn? And by being that community creator, you're able to really bring people to that place where they've begun to trust you before they even really understand that they have. And now you could probably sell them anything you wanted to, but you're really, because of the way you created that community, you're delivering to them what they want, but they were always going to ask you anyway, which was, I mean, that's not the way bulldozers like me do things, right? But it's the way that I've seen that works very well. And it's what we've kind of started to do in our local area. And I got to tell you, it is amazing. And it's that servant leadership, you know. That's one of the things that I've always been attracted to. I mean, almost every conversation we have, I come away going just, wow, because your attitude and your actions are, how can I be of service to you? And out of getting you what you need, I will find a reward in that, whether it's monetary or whether it's, you know, just the satisfaction of knowing that I'm helping, being introduced to somebody else. I mean, we made a connection this week that has absolutely nothing to do with what you and I do together or what you and I know of each other. We connected somebody you know in Bulgaria that is in you know, 3D modeling with another guy I know from high school. I mean, it's all those kinds of things that we're able to do because you're so interested in creating the community and taking the time to build the community before we're not talking about a product, we're talking about a community. And in that place, you've got the free exchange of ideas that's allowing everybody to smorgasbord and bring what they have and potluck around and see what they like and walk away with what they want, right?
Yeah, and I just want to add to that, Shannon. I've talked to, behind the scenes, pretty much every member in the Facebook group. You are one of the most reciprocating people, because I talk to a lot of people who are just, oh, you want to give me something, you want to help me, take. And the reason why I'm attracted to you is because you're a two-way street, and you probably, because you've been a realtor yourself too, you understand the work that goes into making things happen.
Well, and you know, like you, Jen, I found that, you know, at 22, 23 years old, you know, up until I was 35, my business card said I was a superintendent, right? Even though I was the business owner, because I didn't want people to go, you're too young to own the business. I don't want to do business with somebody that's got this kid at the helm, right? I mean, my business started at 24, right? And I've never really worked for anybody else in my life, but my own commercial construction experience and business started then. And the reality is that I learned that I had to lead with value. I walk into the room, I'm no longer the fresh face, right? But I was, and I had to lead with value. I had to give. And I watched how that servant leadership was attractive to other people. And I, you know, as you know, there are people that will take advantage of that. And there are people in my life that have taken advantage of that. And they've shown me what their goal is. And I quickly realign my goals not to match their goals, right? We move on, we learn. But that servant leadership that you have exemplified, that I try to exemplify, is really what builds that community. And that's the thing that I think that you're really about. And, you know, that community building allows you to be trusted on almost every subject, right?
Thank you. And I think you touched on a great point too, where before I was giving freely, and it came from mostly, you know, being naive, spending my energy on the wrong people. But really what it came down to is not having a sense of self-worth, which is something you can generate at any moment, really. But I had all the reasons why, you know, I didn't have enough experience or whatever. And now that I realized that my experiences are actually worthy and people want to work with me in a higher capacity if I allow it, I can be a lot more discerning how I spend my energy. And that's something that just happens over
Well, and I
time.
and I can 100% identify, that's resonating with me as I listen to you say that, because I did the same thing when I was young, right? I mean, just throw myself and please, use me, let me do all this extra stuff and, all these things. And now that I look at it and I'm 48 years old and I'm looking at some of these other people that are 50 years old and 60 years old, and they didn't know what I knew at 25. And if all things were equal, they should have been listening to me the whole time, right? But because of where I believed my self-worth was, and because of what I allowed others to project on me as my value, I wasn't giving myself full credit. So that's a very good point, that you bring the value that your mindset backs up, right? A lot of times it's our mind that lets us down. We know this stuff. We know we're good enough, but we walk in the room and our mind goes, nah. See those people over there? Yeah, that's not us, Jen. Let's go over here and let's hang out. Let's go get some punch. Let's pretend like we don't know anybody. Maybe we can sneak out of this place, right? And if you really looked at it, everybody else is in the room going, I wonder when somebody that knows something is going to show up, right? And they're looking around, and that's something that I look back on, and I couldn't agree with you more, that being in agreement with your mindset and really seeing who you are with the value that you bring and leading with that value is so important. And unfortunately, you and I learned from some really good people, in the sense that they taught us what naivety looked like, because they took advantage of ours. But they taught us some valuable lessons that we now understand this a little bit more. We're now not so about it. So we've kind of covered here where you're at with your community building, and I love that. And it's so funny because if anybody wants, when we get to later, you can connect with Jen, but she's got this cute little video in her signature line, right? And so I get one of my first emails from her, and I watched this video, and it's the story of her and her husband and how they became Bulgarian beekeepers, which I'm going to leave it a surprise. I'm going to let you get an email from Jen so that you can click in the link and you can see how she became a Bulgarian beekeeper. It's the cutest little thing, right? But what I saw in that was how you were leading people down that road of, hey, I'm creating community. I'm creating a story. I'm creating this. And so as you've traveled, and now you're Bulgarian, full-time Bulgarian resident, right? With you and your husband. But now I realize that you do so much more with your performance coaching. And that, I mean, I see how it ties in, but explain to me how that came out of all of this other stuff you got going on.
So this is very interesting, because even today I still bulldoze through a lot of things. But before, everything was brute force. I have a goal. I'm going to impact these many people. It's going to be in this timeline.
So hard for me to believe. So hard for me. I'm not buying that at all. Oh yeah.
And going through transitions, and I'm still processing the full force of making such a life change to moving to Eastern Europe, how things that used to be so simple for me to do on my own, like get a simple answer from my accountant, is now suddenly it's a very complex thing, right? So I started to realize just how much stuff I make difficult for myself that could be very easy if I allowed other people to contribute to me, and to just focus on setting an intention that's so strong and having so much confidence that this is the result that I'm going to have in my life, that the law of attraction just works, and I'm just being who I need to be to attract it, right? So there's a lot of work that went into that, which I can't cover in a short interview, but it is a technique that I teach people. So I made the intention that everything I want in my life is going to happen easily and effortlessly. And I'm going to get all the support that I need, and all the resources that I need are going to show up. And all I need to do is train myself to see it when it shows up, without being attached to how it looks.
Ooh, that's big. That's deep. So all I have to do to get everything that I want easy and effortlessly is allow it to show up in whatever package it shows up in.
Yeah. So if my goal is to make X amount of money and I'm looking for one client who's saying, hey, Jen, I'm going to pay you this much money, I'm going to miss all of the people who I meet who are going to refer me to 10 people because they had such a great chat over coffee with me.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That, and that is so impactful. There's so much there that you could dive into about how you really get there, because you said one little tiny 5-letter word that I think I'm sitting here looking at my life going, there's going to be a whole lot of this training that's got to go into getting that to become your reality, where you can recognize that, you can let that happen, let that unfold in your life. How has that been for a bulldozer like yourself?
Yeah, so the question originally about the honey company, about the performance coaching, about the real estate syndications consulting, these were all a product of me setting this intention. I did not actually have an idea that I'm going to consult real estate companies because this is experience that I have that the marketplace might want. Instead, through creating this Facebook group and just checking in with all of my members, people started to say, Jen, I see you're really good at marketing. Are you for hire? And then as I started working with people in different capacities and they started learning, oh, Jen's not just good at marketing, she knows a lot of things about syndications and she's had a lot of experience. I just launched my website this week. It's called Syndication in a Box, where basically I help syndicators identify all the resources they need to be successful. And my partner Ganga and I in performance coaching, we use performance coaching techniques, but then we also get in your company side by side, like an in-house partner, implement everything and also make all the mindset changes you need, because most people already know what to do. It's something in their mindset that's stopping them from executing and performing, right?
Yes.
But sometimes it is nuts and bolts stuff, which we can provide too. And we're, short time span, within a few months, high impact, get in, get out, and get you towards your goals. So that's the concept behind Syndication in a Box. With the performance coaching, I have been a coach for 4 years for free. And then at the end of last year, I decided to actually get NLP certified. And from there, I started doing some paid offerings, initially just to friends and through Facebook posts. And I was surprised to see how many of my friends would actually pay me to do coaching with me, which was super validating. And they're the ones who know all my flaws too,
Right. That's what I was going to say. I mean, there's so much about coaching that everybody wants to happen from a person that doesn't know them and they don't know the other person, because, you're going to get intimate and you're going to get to the details. So now back up real quick. Your company is syndicationinabox.com.
Yep.
Wow. Nice. That makes it so simple. I just wanted to kind of tag on that because I heard you say it was syndication in a box and wanted to make sure we got that. So now you're doing all of these things, Jen, and I'm going to ask a question that your husband probably asks you all the time. How do you keep this straight? How do you know when to do this and when to do that and when to take time and when to relax? I mean, how do you keep all this straight in life, functioning as a newlywed, as a beekeeper, as someone who's learned a new language? I mean, all these things that are going on. How do you keep all this straight?
Believe it or not, I used to have my schedule stacked, every 30 minutes, bathroom break scheduled back to back to back. Now, if you look at my Google Calendar, which is my main scheduling, life management tool, I have a lot of open time. I've scheduled a lot of flexibility. And I think it's also from saying no to phone calls and trying to get as much, basically people generating as much as possible via email before they get on a call with me. I actually don't have any assistants right now, but I do have partners with everything that I do. I don't do anything.
I love partners because they have a stake in the game, right? Yeah. I mean, there's water that's got to be carried by both people. Clear definition of what you're doing, clear definition of what I'm doing makes it a great thing to do. So I love the partnership model. A lot of people are advocates of, but you could train them how to do it. And you can for certain tasks, but there comes that point where having a partner in the business, having somebody that's drilling in alongside you, that's walking in the same trail and going, I got this part, you take care of the part that you're good at is always very, very good. And as far as having scheduled time, I always have open time in my schedule because it's always something where I find somebody pops into town, somebody just calls, somebody does something out of the blue, and my availability oftentimes is what gets me the work, what gets me in front of the person that's only here for a couple hours and thought I'd swing by and see if you're available. And holy smokes, you actually had time. And it's not that I waste time. I mean, we have so much going on. It's sometimes it's a little overwhelming, but at the same time, I'm resonating with everything. I see some things in what you're saying that I've written down that I'm going to have to change, but I'm resonating with a lot of what you're serving up here, and I think it's just fantastic information. So, what are you finding now that you have all of these things going? I mean, you've got the community you're building, you've got the high performance coaching, and I can see, I think, how they all kind of overlap.
Mm-hmm.
But explain to me how they overlap.
Yes.
Explain to me where that synergy, because I feel like I should know this, like I should be able to go, oh, I see it. But I feel like there's almost some sort of a synergy between all of these things that allow you to get them all quickly and efficiently.
Well, first of all, everything's about people in my life. It's never about the thing or the action. And you'd be surprised how under-leveraged the contacts are in your life. Not you, but everyone. How underused your network is, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is, my husband and I have this thing where our marriage is the context of our honey business. Our product is love and happiness. Our physical health just
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it. That is phenomenal. All right.
So everything
that is awesome.
We do, we go on a banking date, we go on an accounting date, we go on everything we turn into this business date, and we make it fun, and it's a part of our marriage. So right. I get to date my husband for my business,
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, and I see how you make everything fun. Even in your signature line, there's a fun little video, and a little bumblebee that's buzzing around in the whole thing, so that I can see how that works, but that takes work, right? That's not something that just happened, right?
Yeah, you have to be.
So how does the rest of it all just kind of tie together?
So for me, I love learning new things, right? And what I love about having multiple things going on is there are certain things that are transferable to others. I'll give you an example. So before this call, I told you I have this pallet of honey that's stuck in customs, and it's my first time exporting from Bulgaria to America, right?
Right.
And sometimes when I get stuck in things that I'm already good at, like how come my marketing efforts are not getting the number of attendees for this course that I'm trying to promote, or raise the amount of capital that, I set a goal to raise, right? And instead of figuring out new ways to do this, I get discouraged. I get stuck in my stuckness. You know what I mean? Yes. And with the import of the honey, I'm in the same situation, but I'm not stressed. Instead, every single day, I found 2 friends who can actually help me. I found a friend who's done this before, who's allowing me to use his resources, his contacts. I've found new contacts who can help me. And then I learned about new bonds, and I had to read about this bond. And I'm like, wait, this custom broker's told me about this bond that doesn't apply to me. And I have to go fight it. And then I have to negotiate. Don't charge me for warehousing fees because it's not my fault that you assigned me this income, all of this stuff, right? But every step of the way, my husband's super stressed watching from the sidelines. And I'm here take it day by day. I'm doing what I can. I'm learning a lot in the process. And then I thought to myself yesterday, how come I'm not like this with things that I think I already know how to do? And it's because, right? I get so stuck and hard on myself when it's something that I should be good at. And then I decided, okay, a new way I could look at this is, instead of saying, writing it off as maybe I'm just not that good at marketing, I could be like, oh, this old way of me doing marketing with the existing tools I have isn't getting me the results I want. Maybe it's time for me to learn a new type of marketing and get resourceful and find people who can help me and educate myself and blah, 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 and just be in resource mode and take away the stress, right? So I literally got that insight yesterday. And that's the beauty of working on different projects is you can apply learning how to learn in an area that you're already an expert at.
And you're applying how to recognize things that come into your life with ease and effortlessness in different packages, right? You could also, going back to your other note here about leveraging other people by finding where you were finding speakers for the event from other events, you're now finding people in your coaching business that you brought from your syndication efforts.
Yeah, I am actually. A lot of clients are from the 506 Club, actually.
Yeah. So I'm seeing how I'm now getting a bigger picture of how your own, you've got Jen's community that's creating community for other people. And in Jen's community, there's all these different things that attract the community, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the 506, whether it's the honey, whether it's your new and I was very prophetic in me saying that you're going to start an export business, because I can just see how your mind's going to work through that and go, I could do this. I could so do this, right? And your husband's going to be like, what time do we have to do this? So I just see that working in your life, and it's amazing to see that. So, gosh, Jen, we have covered a ton of information, but the one thing that we haven't covered that I want to bring everybody back to is, where in the world can they find your rock starness in the universe? I mean, where are you putting out information and content that they could chase you down and find you?
If it's specific to syndication, syndicationinabox.com. If it's about performance coaching, please email me. My partner Gunga also has a website that lists most of our offerings that we do together. It's focuscoachingus.com.
And you're in the typical haunts on Instagram and Facebook. You've got the 506 Club on Facebook, right?
Yep. All those places.
Awesome. Well, Jen, I feel like we have just finished our introduction for the interview, because there's so much to unpack with you. I got to be honest with you. I had no idea, and I'm looking for my calendar to, before we get off this podcast, to figure out a place where you and I can talk about all the other things that you can do to add to my network. I'm so blown away, and yet I need to be not so hard on myself, because we've only known each other for a couple months, and it's so amazing, right? I mean, so amazing. So I just really want to thank you for being here today and for beginning the conversations in my world about what's going on, and the other things that I need to be looking at, and the things that I can be pushing forward with. I am going to be honest with you. I'm more enlightened than anybody else is going to be from listening to this. I am truly, truly blown away with the content. And I thank you for your time.
It comes to me, Shannon, that you say that. And
no, I say it in all sincerity. I mean, this has been a fantastic conversation, because it really does show me the power of community, right? The power of working through this, like I've tried to work through this and been focused on the last year. The fact that you've come into my life through Facebook, from Bulgaria, from San Francisco, it doesn't matter. It's still not next door. And how that has evolved into everything that it is. And I wish you all the success in your ventures. I mean, you've got plenty of them, but if you need some more, let me know. I've got some projects we can work on together for sure.
I can always use success in my life.
I think I'm going to have to get a vote of confidence from your husband that he wants more stuff in your life before we jump on that. But Jen, as always, it's just truly amazing to talk with you and for you to share insight with my listeners. And I just want to really, honestly, sincerely thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So guys, this is going to wrap up our episode 255 here on the Real Estate Rundown. And if you like what you heard today, be sure to follow us on the Real Estate Rundown. Like us, subscribe, chase us down on Podchaser, Spotify, iTunes, wherever else you get your podcasts, so that you can get automatic updates on awesome content like this beautiful piece we got with Jen today. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube. The RobNet Real Estate Rundown is where we're at, and you can find us and follow us there. Leave a review. I love to hear back from you. And again, you'll see Jen's contacts will be in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. We look forward to having you on the next one.